Welcome to CoinAgeEra, where coins are not just metal, they are living memories. Every mark, every faded line, every silent shine tells a story of time, of people, and of change. And today, we uncover one of the most emotional tales ever hidden within American currency. The story of the 1965 U.S. Liberty One dime, the coin that said goodbye to silver, but never to its soul. It was 1965. The United States stood in a whirlwind of transformation. The world was shifting, technology was rising, music was changing, the young were questioning, and history was rewriting itself. The country had seen wars, had built dreams, had touched the moon in its imagination, yet even in the smallest corners of life, change was unavoidable. And so it reached the very coins people carried in their pockets. For nearly 2 centuries, Americans had trusted silver, shining, honest, eternal. Every dime, every quarter, every half-dollar gleamed with 90% pure silver, and with it came a feeling of stability, of pride. When a silver coin clinked in your hand, it wasn't just money, it was music. It was America's heartbeat in metal form. But by the mid-1960s, something was wrong. Silver prices began to climb. People were melting coins, hoarding them. And soon the United States faced a strange crisis. There was not enough silver left to mint the nation's coins. The sound of silver, that soft, bright ring that had echoed through generations, was fading. The government had to make a choice: either hold on to tradition and watch the system collapse, or embrace change and enter a new era. And so, in 1965, a decision was made that would change the very nature of American coins forever. The 1965 Liberty One dime was the first to be born from that choice, the first to break free from silver's shine and step into a new identity. It was no longer made from the pure beauty of silver. Instead, it was built from layers, a copper heart covered by nickel skin. It looked silver, but it wasn't, and that's what made it symbolic. Just like the country it represented, it carried strength hidden beneath simplicity. It was lighter, different, almost strange to those who first held it. Many Americans didn't like the change. They missed the old sound, the weight, the gleam. Some called it the imitation dime. But what they didn't realize was that this little coin carried something greater than metal. It carried resilience. It carried the story of a nation that refused to stop evolving. But fate had one last twist to add. As the old silver blanks were being phased out, a few slipped through by accident. And so, a handful of 1965 dimes were struck in silver, coins that were never meant to exist. They were errors, but not ordinary ones. They were ghosts from the past, survivors of a vanished age. These rare 1965 silver dimes became legends among collectors. Each one worth thousands, not just for their metal, but for their meaning. Because inside that tiny piece of silver lies the last heartbeat of an era that refused to die. Even when change sweeps the world, a fragment of the old always remains to remind us where we came from. Close your eyes. Imagine holding a 1965 dime. What if it could talk? What would it tell you? It might whisper about a man in a dusty workshop in 1965, earning his first paycheck in newly minted coins. It might speak of a mother buying milk for her child with those very dimes. Or maybe it passed through the hands of a soldier, a teacher, a dreamer, each one adding their story to its journey. Every coin is a traveler. It crosses lives, decades, hearts. It witnesses laughter, struggle, hope. And the 1965 dime, this little piece of metal, became a silent observer of an entire century. Through wars, victories, and revolutions, it kept passing from one hand to another, carrying invisible fingerprints of millions who never knew their paths had crossed through it. Look at the design, the torch, the olive branch, the oak branch. Together they tell America's eternal promise: liberty, peace, and strength. That design didn't change in 1965, even when the silver did. Why? Because liberty isn't made of metal. It's made of spirit. And that's what the 1965 dime represents. The spirit of liberty burning through change. The courage to let go of the past and still remain proud of who you are. This is why collectors treasure it, not for rarity alone, but for meaning. It reminds us that even when things lose their shine, they never lose their worth. The emotional weight of this coin is deeper than most realize. When people held the first 1965 dimes, they didn't just feel the difference in weight, they felt the difference in time. It was like holding a goodbye letter from the past. The silver was gone, but the memories remained. And yet, the dime endured. It didn't fade, it didn't crumble. It kept moving through generations, through wallets, through history itself, carrying with it a story that spoke louder than any sound silver could ever make. Because sometimes silence speaks more. Sometimes the quiet glimmer of copper and nickel tells us that beauty doesn't vanish when form changes, it simply evolves. In the world of collectors, the 1965 dime stands as a symbol of transition, the first modern dime, the start of the clad coin era. But beyond numismatics, it represents something greater. It represents the human story, how we, too, must adapt, change, and move forward when life demands it. It teaches us that real value comes not from what we're made of, but from what we endure. You see, every time someone flips a 1965 dime in their hand, they're unknowingly flipping a page in history, a story of loss, renewal, and quiet strength. For the generation that lived through the Silver Age, the 1965 dime was more than a coin, it was a memory. A reminder of simpler times, of honest trade, of the sound of metal that felt alive. Even today, collectors close their eyes and remember the gentle ring of silver, coins on a wooden counter. That sound was trust, was nostalgia, was America. But even without silver, the 1965 dime kept its promise to carry liberty's flame forward. And maybe that's the most emotional part of all, that the absence of silver did not mean the absence of soul. It has now been nearly 6 decades since that day. The Silver Age is long gone. The people who first spent those coins, many of them are gone too. But the 1965 Liberty dime remains, still shining, still circulating, still whispering history. It has survived recessions, wars, digital money, and decades of change. It has lived longer than most of the hands that ever touched it, and that makes it immortal. Here at CoinAgeEra, we believe coins are not just metal discs, they are vessels of emotion, mirrors of humanity, and chapters of time. The 1965 U.S. Liberty One dime is not just a coin. It is a symbol of how a nation grew, how people learned to adapt, and how liberty survived even when silver did not. It tells us that true value lies not in composition, but in character. It reminds us that endings are never truly ends, they are beginnings in disguise. So, next time you find a 1965 dime, hold it for a moment. Feel its lightness. Feel its quiet strength. You're not just holding currency, you're holding a heartbeat from 1965, a heartbeat that still echoes today, in the hearts of collectors, dreamers, and storytellers like us. Because here on at CoinAgeEra, we don't just show coins, we bring them to life. Thank you for watching.